Hello, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts and welcome to the next episode of our silhouette seminars. Today we're going to be looking at sizing. We have in the past looked at how to do the opening of your documents and how to put your image into your library and how to get your image from your library onto your mat. So now we're going to look at how we can change the sizing of that image to suit what we want to cut for the project that we've got in mind. So obviously for the purposes of our demonstration, I want to put something on my mat. So just as a recall, we're going to go into our library and we are going to find an image. So I think I'll use this scalloped label here, and we just double click and then that image automatically puts itself on the mat at a default size. So that could vary. So for just as another example, this one here, that covers the full page. So it will have a default size as to what, when you click on it, what it will go on the mat as. And it could be that that's exactly what you want. So if it isn't, the first way that we're going to look at to change the sizing is a very simple one. We are literally just going to click on our image. Let me just zoom in so you can see. And you can see it brings up a bounding box, and we've got on it here some little bits of information. So the first thing is we've got these arrows down the side which are representing and showing this is the point that it's measuring from, and it's basically telling you the dimensions of your image. So you will have set that as to whether you want it in inches or in centimetres in your settings box, which we also looked at, I believe, in the first episode. And I've got mine in inches, so it here is pretty much, pretty much square, but it's actually not quite square. This is about 2.6 by, so it's about 2.6 by 2.9, so it's not quite square. And so you've got that information on there. You also have little boxes on the corners and on each side. And these are your little handles, and these are what you use to move and resize your shape. So as you go on your shape and you click, you can see a little hand come up that allows you to move your shape. So that's just what that is. But as you go across those little boxes, you will see a little arrow come up, and on the corner the same but at an angle. So these are what you're going to grab using your mouse. As they're coming up just as I hover. I'm not clicking any keys on my mouse. If I want to actually start using those handles, I will need to click. So I'll hover across that, wait for the little arrow to come, then click with my left mouse key, and then without releasing that mouse key, I can then just pull out to increase in size or drag in to make it smaller. Now, when you're using the corner little boxes, you're going to keep these sized proportionate, so it will remain in proportion. So if this was a square, for example, it would stay square. If it is in this case an oblong, it will stay proportionately. So if it was 2 inches to 3 inches, it would stay. If we went up, it might go to say 4 inches by 6 inches as an example. It would keep completely proportionate. It wouldn't distort in any way. Now sometimes you want to do that. It may be, for example, which is why I picked this, that we think, well actually I really like this, but I would prefer it to be more square. So all we would do is we would hover over our side here, our little box, wait for the arrow, click down with our left mouse key, holding it, not releasing. In this instance we're going to drag inwards, and you can see that we are virtually at square, and we can use those little measurements to tell us if it was exactly right or not. If you want to be that precise though, it's often easier to do it in one of the other ways that I'm going to show you, but you can get it there, and it's nice and perfectly square. And so we can then, if we wanted to make that then bigger, so you could drag it to be square, but you might think, well, actually I want it bigger. You can then just grab that corner, and if you look, it stayed proportionate. In this case, the proportions are square, so it's 4.41, and this side is also 4.41, so it's remained in proportion. And again, if we grab this though, it would drag that up. But don't forget, you can also do your undo button up here. Alright, so that's way one of changing the size. And also, just to say, when you're changing anything about any image, you do need to make sure that the particular image is highlighted with the bounding box. Okay, so the second way to change the size of your image gives you a much more accurate way of doing it, and it's very, very precise. You can be absolutely on the button of what size you want it to be, and that's often easier. For example, if you've been watching me a lot, you will see that I often put in a virtual card that matches my real card on my mat when I'm working, because that gives me a guide as to helping me size the other images. So for example, just suppose that this was my card front, and I thought, well, I want to put, I don't know, let's think, this musical note on the front. Well, unless I actually measure it, put it over it, I might think, well, I'm not quite sure how big I want it to be, because I might just think, well, I just want it in the corner, or I might think, well, actually now I've seen it, I think I'd prefer it to take up the whole shape. So by having this virtual card, it allows me to do that. So I could put that in there and I think, oh yeah, that looks quite nice. Now I want something else. So you can start to build your image up and create your picture, and what I then do is then save that, and then I copy and paste each element onto the mat, onto another mat ready for cutting. So you've got several ways of doing it. You've got here, you've got open scale window, so I won't click on that, but you can see that it's there. Or you can get to it from this way by clicking on your home button here, and then you've got a scale button here. These all end up at the same place. They end up by opening a window down the side here, and it's all the same window, it's just different ways of getting to the same thing. And then you've got up here on the menu up the top here, you've got transform and then scale here as well. So we're going to just click on this one here, and you can see we've got our scale window. Scale is basically sizing, it's scaling the image to the size that you want it to be. So here we've got percentage scaling. I don't ever think I've ever used that, but you might have a shape and you think, well, I only want it to be half that size. Bang, gone, half that size. So then you've got your specify dimensions section here. Now this is where, if you look here, you've got width 2.725, 2.725, height 2.730, and that's the height there. So it's very clear that these dimensions here are marrying up with dimensions here. So if you haven't got an image clicked, you can see that those dimensions go back to 0 because it doesn't know what you want it to measure. Okay, so make sure that your image is clicked. Now if you know exactly what size you want, what you would do is you might think, right, I want this to be 4 inches wide by 6 inches tall, and then you just type that into each section and you click apply, and it creates yourself. As I said before, I use this quite often for a card base, so in this instance that might make a nice 4x6 card base as a virtual card base, or a layer, or whatever. These are just examples. Obviously this is applicable, these methods, across anything that you're using. But it could be that, let's undo that so that we go back to what it was. Now it could be that you think, well, actually I'm not unhappy with it as it is, proportionately. So let's just drag it a bit wider so we've got a proportion, so it's not so square, just for the example. So, you know, I'm not too unhappy. I quite like it being an oblong like this. It's just that I want it to be an oblong that's going to fit in a 6-inch wide square, or whatever. It's got to be to fit in something that's 6 inches across. So you can type in here 6 inches and click apply, and look what happens. This stays at 2.730 and the width goes to 6 inches. Well, that's not really what we had in mind. We wanted it to also grow in height. We wanted the proportions to remain the same. Now, clearly this shows that you can just change one of those dimensions, but if we didn't want to, if we wanted those little scallops to stay all proportionate and everything all perfectly like we wanted, or if we had a specific shape, say like this musical note, whoops, you know, if you did only, if we did 3 inches tall, wide, it distorts that image. I think that's clearer on that. It's not really what you had in mind. And so what we need to do is click undo to put it back, and we'll click on that. What you need to do if you want to change it to a different size, as I said, say we wanted it to fit something that was a specific width. So in this case, let's say it was a 4-inch width, but we want it not to distort the shape. We want it to stay proportionate. You need to check this box that says lock aspect ratio, and then you can put in the width 4 inches and apply, and you can see what it's done is it's gone, okay, it's 4 inches that I need to go across, but because she said lock aspect ratio, I know I have to change the height as well in order for the image not to distort, and it works out exactly what height it needs to change it to and does that for you. So you've got that kind of already built in, so you don't have to fiddle around trying to make sure it's worked out. It will do that for you. Just to say, you don't have to type anything in as well. You can just try it out by just using these arrow keys, but you do need to click apply. So you've got that option as well. So you might just be only a couple of points up and you just think, oh, I'll just click it to do it and do it that way. So that's that option there. Okay, so that's really all there is to sizing. It's a pretty simple thing, but it's pretty, you know, the most important thing, the thing that you're going to do the most often is sizing. And it's worth knowing the different options that you've got, because you will find that this is kind of like, to me, one of the most important things, and by using it in different ways, you'll be able to come up with so many different options and have so much more flexibility with each image. Anyway, I hope that's all made sense on the sizing. I hope that's been clear. And just to remind you that the silhouette seminars are the first Wednesday of every month. So I will see you next month for the next silhouette seminar. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the box below or on my Q&A section on my website. All right, I'll see you around. Thanks for watching. Bye.